I give you the final 10 of the 20 reasons not to vote. Do you agree with all of these? What's in the news with stories on cop stuns grandmother 3 times, cop sexually assaults 2 children, Assange blocked from seeing the evidence against him, Manning being tortured, Illinois pardons 11,000 people for cannabis, and private police service mounts private prosecutions department in the UK. And in Ask Me Anything, where I answer your questions on what is most likely in a list of improbable items, private DNA databases, and what did I accomplish in 2019, and what do I hope to accomplish in 2020. This episode is brought to you by Health Excellence Plus, a health share that has saved my family thousands of dollars and can save you money too. Also brought to you by ForkFest, the annual decentralized libertarian camping event that happens around PorcFest, with no tickets and no one in charge. Also brought to you by all of my dozens of supporters.
Welcome to The Lava Flow, channeling the flow of information to the libertarian, anarcho-capitalist, voluntarist, and agorist community. Find us at thelavaflow.com. Here's your host, Roger Paxton.
Thank you for joining me this week. From the 5th smallest state in the U.S., this is the show where I shoot from the lip to bring you the people, places, and events that everyone in the Liberty Rebellion needs to know. You can catch me on Twitter at @TheLavaFlowPod. This is episode 150, Reasons Not to Vote, Part 2, and it's Tuesday, January 7th, 2020, when there were more than 931 people killed by police this year, and the United States debt clock shows us at more than $23,161,100 million in debt. What's wrestling my jimmies this week? You're about to find out. Let's do it to it. One question I get asked a lot in relation to this show is why I don't vote. Now, I've answered it in many ways at various times over the last few years of this show, but I took a deep dive into voting on the Essential Libertarianism podcast as well. But a great article came across my monitors recently from the website The Art of Not Being Governed. The article is titled 20 Reasons Not to Vote, and I agree with most of these reasons, so I wanted to share this with you. I will, of course, add my commentary because you know that I can't keep my mouth shut for long. This is the last 10 of the 20 reasons not to vote. I did the first 10 a couple of weeks ago in episode 149. You can listen to that at thelavaflow.com/149. So let's jump into the rest of this list. Number 11. Voting reinforces the idea that the people have the power rather than the largely unaccountable bureaucrats who make the rules. Now, of course, this one I agree with 100%. We all know who has the power in this relationship, and it's not we the people, that's for damn sure. But by voting, it reinforces a mistaken ideal that is not accurate and confuses the issue for the sheeple who still believe that we the people have the power. Number 12. Voting is futile, because invariably the better financed candidate wins. Boy, isn't this the truth. Yes, there are exceptions to every rule, but the exceptions in this case are so rare that it's laughable. Also, the tallest candidate usually wins, and the better looking. Voting is nothing more than a popularity contest these days. Number 13. Statistically, any one vote makes no more difference than a single grain of sand on a beach. Thinking that their vote counts tends to give the voter a mistaken, inflated sense of self-worth, and participation in a system creates a passive sense of accomplishment. Absolutely. I mean, the chances of your vote making a difference are minuscule. Your vote does not count, and it likely never will. You have a better chance of winning the lottery or being struck by lightning twice than of having your vote actually decide a political outcome. Number 14. An individual's ability to make an informed choice is zero if the only information they receive is from the overtly biased mainstream media, government news channels, politicians, and party manifestos, or from an enforced state school education. Now let's be honest here, folks. How many people do you think who vote actually take the time to look into the candidates more than what they're being force-fed from Facebook, YouTube, school, or the mainstream media? I would venture to say the number is so small as to be nearly incalculable. Number 15. Voting sends a false signal to the elected politicians that the voter approves of all of their policies. Voters therefore encourage them. So true. and this is why I say stop encouraging the bastards. How many of our elected officials barely win an election and then say they have a mandate from the voters for their policies? It happens all the time. If you're voting, you are helping perpetuate that encouragement, even if you voted against that candidate. Could a candidate say that they had a mandate if no one showed up and voted? Of course not. Number 16. If an individual has not come to firm conclusions about the election, then that individual will do more for their country or community by not voting, rather than making a mistake. And again, I agree here. An uneducated voter is doing real damage to the people under the rule of the elected representatives, since they have been selected based on a popularity contest instead of informed voters making an informed, wise decision. Number 17. If the outcome of a vote is unknown, then voting is tantamount to gambling. If the outcome of a vote is known, then voting is futile. Now, I'm not so sure about this one. Mass selection is not gambling, in my opinion. But the second part of this, that voting is futile when the result is known, is absolutely accurate. I would go further by saying that voting is always futile. Number 18. No individual has the authority to make laws that their neighbor or anyone else must obey. With that being the case, then how is it morally acceptable for any individual to delegate authority that they don't have to someone else, such as a politician? 100% yes. You can't make something right or moral by adding more people to it. Can you morally rob your neighbor? Of course not. Can you and 2 other neighbors morally go rob your neighbor? Of course not. Then can you and all of your neighbors morally vote for a group of other people to rob your neighbor? No. You cannot delegate a right or authority to someone else without first having that right or authority. Number 19. Should people who know more about game shows, sports, reality TV, and celebrities, rather than matters of real importance, economics, political philosophy, history, logic, critical thinking, etc., be in a position to vote and influence the lives of others? Wow. They really went there, and I love it. Most people spend more time focusing on things that don't matter than they do on things that actually have a direct impact on their lives. All of us are guilty of this to some extent, me included. I love my Star Wars, including the movies, TV shows, novels, and comics, and I spend a lot of time in that universe, sometimes more than I should, for sure. Having an escape is not a bad thing, but knowing more about your escape than the people you're voting for to have a direct impact on your life and to rule over you is inexcusable. And finally, number 20. Supporting the lesser of 2 evils is still supporting evil. I was hoping that they would get to this one at some point, and they did not disappoint. This is very self-explanatory. Evil is evil, even if you vote for the lesser evil. And those of you who think that defensive voting, for example, voting against a tax or voting for a lower tax, is not evil, this includes even you voting for a lesser tax than the one that is being proposed. Taxation is evil, so voting for a lesser tax is still evil. So these are the final 10 of the 20 reasons not to vote. Now, I'm not saying you're not a libertarian if you vote, so please don't mistake me. I am saying, though, that it is pretty hard to call yourself an anarchist or a voluntarist if you continue to beg for scraps from the troughs of our rulers. Some people do, though. I guess, though, someone can call themselves anything they wish. Hell, Bill Weld says he's a libertarian. In that vein, this article from The Art of Not Being Governed ends with the following statements. The 20 reasons not to vote boil down to this. If you are not a voluntarist, then by definition you are an involuntarist. And as such, you personally advocate the initiation of force or the threat of force against people who haven't threatened or harmed anyone. Therefore, for every person in the world, one of these 2 statements is true. Either 1, I advocate a society whereby people are free to voluntarily interact with one another. Or 2, I advocate the use of force or threat of force against innocent people in order to make them comply with my opinions and preferences. If the first statement refers to you, then don't vote.
What's in the news? The news you need to know from a libertarian perspective.
In Bad Boys news, in Florida, cops used a stun gun on a 70-year-old grandmother 3 times on her 70th birthday. Authorities in Florida struck a woman with a stun gun 3 times on her 70th birthday after she refused to allow them into her home to search for her grandson, documents show. The woman, Barbara Pinckney of Bradenton in Manatee County, was charged Thursday with obstruction and battery on a law enforcement officer, according to a probable cause affidavit obtained by NBC News. The documents say the grandson, Tevin Turner, was wanted on a probation violation for carrying a concealed weapon. Records listed Pinckney's address as Turner's, the documents say, although Pinckney said that he had just used her address while on probation. Pinckney said she was scared when authorities began pounding on her door early Thursday. She said, "I was just hollering. I didn't know what else to do." According to the affidavit, Pinckney demanded a search warrant, which an officer said was unnecessary because authorities had already obtained an arrest warrant. When an officer warned her that she could be arrested if Turner was inside, she still refused to open the door. A struggle ensued when the officer tried to force the door open, with Pinckney trying to shut it and the officer grabbing her wrist and telling her she was going to jail. Cell phone video recorded by Pinckney's daughter-in-law, Elizabeth Francisco, shows Pinckney appear to pull away from the officer when he fires the stun gun. Screaming can be heard in the video. The affidavit says the officer fired after she pushed him in the chest. He struck her once with the stun gun in the left arm with no effect, then again in the back. This fucking coward. A 70-year-old woman supposedly pushed him, so he tases her? What a fucking pussy. The officer then took her to the ground, the document says, adding that she continued to resist, placing her hands behind her back. The officer then struck her again with the stun gun, this time in the upper back. The weapon again had no effect, so he secured her with his knee until another officer could handcuff her. Look, if your day-to-day job requires you to bully a 70-year-old woman for securing her person, papers, and things, then maybe you're in the wrong fucking business. Get a real job. In more Bad Boys news, the assistant police chief in Portland, Arizona has been charged with 2 counts of child sex abuse. David Ray Cash, 49, was charged Thursday after he sexually assaulted a 9-year-old and 7-year-old between September and December, according to documents filed with the case. Muskogee County Sheriff's deputies responded to a 911 call the night of December 19th. The caller told arriving deputies that the children said Cash was sexually assaulting them. Chief Deputy Michael Mahan says, "We received the initial call and began the initial investigation and then turned it over to the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation. It's standard procedure whenever it involves another law enforcement agency within Muskogee County." The OSBI then conducted a sexual assault nurse examination, or SANE, which found that injuries to one of the children were consistent with child sexual abuse, the affidavit states. During interviews with Cash on December 20th and December 23rd, the affidavit states, Cash confessed to the interviewer that he was often left alone with the children and began sexually abusing the 2 children in question sometime in September. The affidavit states, Cash described instances of receiving oral sex from Juvenile 1 and Juvenile 2, and also detailed instances of vaginal manipulation on Juvenile 2. Remember, these are 9- and 7-year-old children. One of the children detailed several instances of sexual assault during an interview at Kids Space, the Muskogee County Child Advocacy Center, according to the affidavit. The OSBI later concluded that Cash had abused the children and should be charged with child sexual abuse. Cash was subsequently arrested and remains in custody at the Muskogee County City Detention Facility without bond. Without bond. Boy, these guys are serious. And they should be. This guy is a fucking monster. And he did his deeds under the color of his badge while interviewing at least one of these babies at the Child Advocacy Center. Fuck this monster in the neck with his badge. As most of you know, I was laid off from my 9-to-5 Director of IT job last summer. Among the many terrifying things about losing your job is losing your health benefits. Our family went about 6 months without any kind of health insurance, and the anxiety and worry that came along with that was not insignificant. But after spending dozens of hours researching our options and quickly rejecting the $2,000 a month price tag that came with the options available with traditional insurance, we found Health Excellence Plus, a health share that was a fraction of the cost, and we're glad we did. Only a few weeks after joining as members of this health share program, my wife was diagnosed with a common skin cancer that requires an expensive procedure to remove the cancer and another surgery to repair the damage done from the cancer removal. When this is all said and done, Health Excellence Plus will have saved our family thousands of dollars, and I'll bet they can save you money too. Health Excellence Plus is a health share that meets the requirements of the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. A health share is a community of like-minded, health-focused members who have joined together to share each other's medical costs above an amount they can comfortably afford. A health share is not traditional health insurance. It is designed to be a catastrophic coverage for major items, like my wife's surgery. The cost of an average family insurance policy for a primary 45 years old with a $5,000 deductible is $1,450 per month. A Health Excellence Plus $500 initial insharable amount with a healthcare strategy is only $783. Get started saving money today at thelavaflow.com/health. That's thelavaflow.com/health. In Not All Heroes Wear Capes news, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has been blocked from seeing key evidence from U.S. authorities who want to extradite him for leaking sensitive military data. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange is yet to be shown key evidence in the case brought against him by the American authorities. The 48-year-old faces accusations of leaking sensitive United States military material between January and May of 2010. The Americans want to extradite him to U.S. soil so he can be prosecuted for conspiring with Army intelligence analyst Chelsea Manning for leaking classified documents. Gareth Pierce, representing Assange, said, "The summary case, which we have prepared, is a dense document. Mr. Assange has not been given what he must be given, and we are keen to go through this to the best of our abilities to keep with the requests of the court. It is predicated on the underlying evidence that Mr. Assange has not been able to review." Last month, Swedish authorities dropped rape allegations made in 2010 against Julian Assange. Now, isn't this just typical of U.S. justice? The justice system in the U.S. has rules that they must follow, unless they decide they don't want to. Then they don't. But damn it, you better not miss any of their rules, or you are fucked. Free Julian Assange. In more Not All Heroes Wear Capes news, United Nations Special Rapporteur on Torture, Niles Melzer, shared on social media Tuesday a letter that he sent to the United States government last month, expressing concerns that the continued detention of whistleblower Chelsea Manning amounts to torture. The Geneva-based expert tweeted, "Just out, my official letter to U.S. government of 1 November 2019 explaining why continued detention of Chelsea is not a lawful sanction, but an open-ended, progressively severe coercive measure amounting to torture, and should be discontinued and abolished without delay." Since March 8, 2019, with the exception of a one-week period in May, Manning has been held in contempt of court at the William G. Truesdale Adult Detention Center in Alexandria, Virginia. Manning has been imprisoned, sometimes in solitary confinement, for her refusal to testify to a grand jury about WikiLeaks and its founder, Julian Assange. Melzer, who also has publicly condemned the U.S. prosecution of Assange and the conditions of his detention, wrote in the letter dated November 1st that I express serious concern at the reported use of coercive measures against Ms. Manning, particularly given the history of her previous conviction and ill treatment in detention. Citing his obligations under the Human Rights Council, Melzer included in the letter a list of requests for more information about the detention conditions of Manning, who has made clear that she has no intention of testifying, regardless of how long she is held and the massive fines that she's racking up. He noted that his message and any response from the U.S. government would be made public within 60 days. The U.S.-based digital rights group Fight for the Future welcomed Melzer's letter in a statement which pointed out that the Special Rapporteur's message comes as thousands of people have already taken action on a new petition effort at freechelsea.com, backed by groups like Fight for the Future, Demand Progress, Freedom of the Press Foundation, Daily Cause, Roots Action, Media Alliance, and Defending Rights and Dissent. If you haven't signed this petition yet, I ask you personally, from me to you, to go to freechelsea.com right now and sign the petition. I would consider it a personal favor. These groups plan to deliver the signatures demanding Manning's immediate release to District Judge Anthony Tringa of the Eastern District of Virginia next month. Manning, who already has served about 9 months in jail, can be held for a total of up to 18 months for not talking. Now, I agree with Melsner. This amounts to torture. It is also an illegal and unconstitutional kidnapping of a person for just refusing to speak. I thought we had the right to remain silent in this country. So much for that. Unfit to fucking exist. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 29th until July 5th for ForkFest 2020 at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. ForkFest happens the week after the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and ForkFest is decentralized, which means no one is in charge. That also means there's no ticket cost. Just reserve your camping, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 29th until July 5th, and then just show up. There's nothing more to do. What better way to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire? You can simply relax and go camping with other liberty lovers, or you can create whatever experience or event you'd like others to have. I've been to all 3 ForkFests so far, and it is growing every single year. I love this event. If you're planning an event for ForkFest, be sure to let others know in advance. You can connect with other ForkFesters via the unofficial Telegram chat or the ForkFest forum. Links to those are on the unofficial website, forkfest.party. That's forkfest.party. I hope to see you there this year. In some good news, the Illinois governor granted more than 11,000 pardons for low-level marijuana convictions, describing the step as the first wave of thousands of such expungements anticipated under the state's new medical legislation laws. The expungement process is a key part of the law, which takes effect Wednesday and made Illinois the 11th state to legalize marijuana for people 21 or older. When they crafted the policy, Illinois lawmakers said they wanted to repair some of the damage caused by law enforcement's efforts to combat sale and use of the drug, particularly in minority communities. Democratic Governor J.B. Pritzker announced the pardons at a church on Chicago's South Side. He said clearing the misdemeanor offenses from individuals' records will make it easier for them to get jobs, housing, and financial aid for college. State officials estimated that 116,000 convictions involving 30 grams or less of marijuana, including for possession of the drug, are eligible for pardons under the new law. Illinois State Police are responsible for identifying those convictions and sending the records to the state's Prisoner Review Board, which then forwarded eligible cases to the governor's office for pardons. Pritzker's pardons allow the state attorney general to ask courts to formally clear or seal the records. Pritzker said in a statement, "We are ending the 50-year-long war on cannabis. We are restoring rights to the many tens of thousands of Illinoisans. We are bringing regulation and safety to a previously unsafe and illegal market, and we are creating a new industry that puts equity at its very core." Well, he got this mostly right, but it was never a war on cannabis. It was a war on people who use cannabis. Other states that have begun permitting marijuana sales and use created procedures for people to expunge minor drug offenses, but Illinois officials wanted the process to be almost automatic for people with nonviolent marijuana arrests or convictions on their records. Some people still will have to act independently to have marijuana convictions expunged. People who have been convicted of offenses involving between 30 and 500 grams of marijuana in Illinois can file court petitions to clear those records. Local prosecutors and legal aid organizations also can take that step independently. State officials estimate that 34,000 records are eligible for that process. Law enforcement agencies have a 5-year period to expunge records of minor marijuana arrests that did not result in a conviction, starting with the most recent cases. Officials estimate that 572,000 arrest records fall into that category. 572,000 arrests over a 5-year period for cannabis. Let that sink in. Marijuana arrests accompanied by violent offenses are not eligible for expungement. Now, I applaud the state of Illinois for this action. I just wish they'd go further than 5 years, personally. In It Can Be Done news, a private police service is mounting the UK's first private prosecutions for theft and other minor crimes, because it claims that the police have given up on taking them to court. The private firm, which provides neighborhood policing to residents, firms, and shops, says it has set up a new prosecution unit after its teams have apprehended shoplifters, pickpockets, and drug dealers, only to be told by officers called to the scene to release them. The former senior Metropolitan Police officers who run the My Local Bobby service blames cuts in police numbers, which meant officers were reluctant to spend time and valuable resources investigating and prosecuting minor offenses. But I guarantee you that they spend time and money working to investigate and prosecute victimless crimes all day long. It comes as an analysis of police data by the Daily Telegraph shows that in some parts of Britain, as few as 1 in 500 personal thefts, such as pickpocketing and shoplifting, are being solved with a criminal charge. 1 in 500. David McKelvey, a former detective chief inspector with the Met who set up the service with Tony Nash, a former Met borough commander, said the criminal justice system was in crisis with tens of thousands fewer prosecutions and lenient sentences as old-fashioned policing has been abandoned. They launched My Local Bobby just over 2 years ago to provide residents, local firms, and shops with neighborhood policing more reminiscent, it says, of Dixon of Dock Green's. Dixon of Dock Green was a BBC television series about daily life at a fictional London police station, with the emphasis on petty crime, successfully controlled through common sense and human understanding. Its 30 bobbies, who are uniformed with red vests and caps, provide cover 24/7 for up to 250 houses on each beat, and the firm promises to have a response at the scene within 5 minutes, all for a fee of between £100 and £200 a month per household. Sign me up. However, Mr. McKelvey said its teams have become increasingly frustrated in the past year by the refusal of police to prosecute the shoplifters, pickpockets, and drug dealers that they have been apprehending on almost a daily basis. In the past, they had handed them over to police who would investigate and prosecute them. He said, now police take ages to turn up, and when they do turn up, despite overwhelming evidence, they will simply take the handcuffs off and release them. We have looked at ways to do it, trying to liaise with police and senior managers in the police. But what we have done now is to employ a new prosecution team on shoplifting, pickpockets, low-level assaults, and drug dealing, and we will prosecute these offenses ourselves. Anyone can arrest and prosecute someone. What you have to do is meet the public interest threshold and have sufficient evidence to bring a case. Now, they have already mounted a test case prosecution of a shoplifter, which is currently before the courts. This is a step in the right direction. A step away from government police forces and prosecutions that only have the interest of our rulers at heart. The only issues I see with this so far is that they, like police, are also arresting people for some victimless crimes like drug dealing. But that is more an issue with the government's laws than this department. I guarantee you that if it were not illegal to be a drug dealer, they would not arrest you for that. They should really be arresting these people for trespassing instead of drug dealing if they're not allowed to be there. My only other issue is that they are using government courts. There should be a way that they could use private courts to find these criminals instead of clogging up government courts that are likely already overburdened and completely unfair to begin with. But this is a great first step, and I hope to see more like this in the future.
Ask me anything. Roger will answer your questions about, well, anything. Do you have a question for Roger? Email ama@thelavaflow.com or add your question to the latest AMA thread in the Pax Libertas Productions Facebook group.
It's that time again. I'm going to answer your burning questions. Remember, you can ask me your question by adding it to the thread that I post in the Pax Libertas Productions Podcast Fans Facebook group or by emailing me at ama@thelavaflow.com. Or if you are awesome as fuck and you support this show, you can ask me your question in the Lava Flow Super Supporters Facebook group or in Patreon. So let's jump into the questions. First, the ever-curious Daryl W. Perry asks, which is more likely? 1. Earth is flat. 2. Gravity is real. 3. Time is an illusion. 4. We all live in a simulation and nothing exists. Well, some of these have already been proven without a doubt, such as the Earth is round and gravity does exist, so those two are out. Time is an illusion. I'm not sure in what perspective this means, but time is clearly not an illusion as we can measure time. The only one of these that I could conceivably say is the most likely is that we live in some sort of matrix-like simulation. More likely than the other options? Yes. Likely, though? No, not really. Daryl also asks, I just read an article about police using DNA genealogical databases with few rules and little transparency. Have you ever taken a DNA test? If so, what are your thoughts on this abuse of power by the thin blue line? Yes, Daryl, I have taken a DNA test. I was gifted a test a couple of years ago from 23andMe, and I took it. It was pretty interesting, the genealogical and health data that I received. So, yes, since my DNA is in the private hands of 23andMe, the fact that cops are using sweeping warrants to get access to potentially tens of thousands of results at a time is scary as fuck. I will say, though, that 23andMe has not been involved in such a broad sweep of data being gathered by police. Yet. And they are very resistant to it as well. On their site, 23andMe has the following information on a specific page set up specifically for police trying to gain access to DNA information from them. It says, 23andMe chooses to use all practical, legal, and administrative resources to resist requests from law enforcement, and we do not share customer data with any public databases or with entities that may increase the risk of law enforcement access. In certain circumstances, however, 23andMe may be required by law to comply with a valid court order, subpoena, or search warrant for genetic or personal information. 23andMe requires a valid legal process in order to consider producing information about our users. 23andMe will only review inquiries related to a valid trial, grand jury, or administrative subpoena, warrant, or order. 23andMe will consider releasing additional account information or transactional information pertaining to account only in response to a court order. In addition, 23andMe will only consider inquiries from a government agency with proper jurisdiction. To date, 23andMe has never received a request to preserve information potentially relevant to legal proceedings. If 23andMe is required by law to comply with a valid court order, subpoena, or search warrant for genetic or personal information, we will notify the affected individuals through the contact information they have provided to us before we disclose this information to law enforcement, unless doing so would violate the law or the court order. We will give them a reasonable period of time to move to quash the subpoena before we answer it. Now, I'm certainly personally glad to see that at least one of these companies stands up to the cops and the rule of law. So I'm glad I used 23andMe. Thank you for the questions, Daryl. Supporter and friend Link W asks, it's December 2020. What things are you most proud of having accomplished in this year? And for that matter, it's December 2019. What things are you most proud of having accomplished this year? Well, clearly, I didn't get to this question last month as I had hoped since it's now January, but this question is still a great one, and I wanted to take a few minutes to answer it. So first, to answer what I hope to accomplish in 2020, I have several personal and career goals in 2020. First, let me start with the personal. First, I want to gain more knowledge and learn more about homesteading and self-sufficiency. Along those lines, I also want to become more self-sufficient by putting away more food and resources that will ensure my family's growing self-sufficiency. This includes a ton of building projects we have planned for the year. I want to gain more knowledge and skills in the farming industry. One day I would love to turn our hobby into a financial success. So far, we've done chickens for meat and eggs. This spring, we're going to be working towards raising a few pigs and some beehives and ramping up our meat chicken production from 13 birds to around 120. I also want to produce more of our own food this year. Last year, we raised 341.45 pounds of our own food from the garden, chickens, and such. Actually, it was a little bit more than that since I really didn't start counting in the spreadsheet until mid-April, so we took in a bunch of eggs prior to that we didn't get to count. I'm hoping for more than 750 pounds this year with the additional chickens and the new pigs and bees. I also hope to begin bringing in a small amount of money from farming by selling eggs, pigs, and meat chickens. We plan to keep around 60 of the meat chickens and sell the rest this year. We also plan to raise about 4 pigs or so, keeping 2 for us and selling the rest. Next year, we're going to ramp this up even more. I also want to continue to see and help my boys become the amazing men that they're already on the path to becoming by helping them to continue to pursue their dreams in any way that I can, and not help them pursue my dreams. I also want to continue working on my health by losing more weight, starting to work out now that my knees and back are starting to feel better, and getting off some of my maintenance medications. And as far as career goals go, I have a few of those as well. I want to continue to diversify my income so that losing any 1 or 2 income streams isn't a major crisis for my family. I want to see a company that I'm contracting IT work with finally bring their device to market this year, hopefully the first half of this year. It's been a massive goal, taking lots of work. Now I'm enjoying so much the process of helping them to bring this product to market that it's going to improve the lives of millions. I also hope to contract to do more audiobooks and voiceovers this year than last year. I plan to incorporate Strike the Root Farm and turn it into a legitimate business and source of income by the end of the year so we can begin really getting busy next year on the farm. We've already begun this process a bit by starting a Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube account for the farm. You can like those accounts by searching for Strike the Root Farm on any of these platforms. I'd really appreciate it if you did. I plan to expand Pax Libertas Productions by adding new, fresh podcasts and content to the network. And oh boy, 2019 was crazy busy and an awesome year for the Paxton clan. These are just a few of the things we accomplished in 2019. We produced an amazing PorcFest that was profitable for the second year in a row. With no prior building experience, we researched and planned and purchased tools and materials to build a chicken run, 2 shelving systems, 2 workbenches, an outdoor bench with 2 end tables, and 5 greenhouse tables. We researched, planned, implemented, cared for, and harvested our first garden, which included more than 100 individual 5 to 20-gallon containers and a greenhouse. Along with producing our own food came learning about various preservation methods and putting away a lot of food. I've already talked about the meat chickens a bit ago, but that was huge for us as well. It was a big step. We did 100% of raising and processing those chickens on our own property. We also increased our egg-layer chicken flock from 10 birds to 35 birds. And I'm also at the lowest weight that I've been for nearly 15 years, dropping 90 pounds so far. I'm under 250 pounds with about 70 or 80 more to lose, depending on how I feel when I get to that point. So last year was just plain awesome for us, and 2020 is only going to be better. Link, thank you so much for the question. That's all the questions that I have time for this week, so thank you to everyone who sent in a question this week. I still have a bunch in the queue for next week, so make sure to subscribe, because there are some good ones coming up. Thank you for listening to the show this week. As always, I need to thank my favorite New Year's kiss, Jessica, for her help with the show. For the show notes to this episode, where I put links and other information that's been on this show, go to thelavaflow.com/150. I have one new supporter this week. Chris R. signed up at thelavaflow.com/support at the $5 per month level. Chris, thank you so much, man. You rock. So thanks to all of my awesome supporters like Chris, I am at $246 per episode, or 49.25% of the way towards my next goal of $500 per episode. Guys, thank you all for the support, really. Remember, when I hit this next goal, I'm going to be upping the content that I bring you from half an hour per week to a full hour. I know you want more content from me, and I want to give it to you. So please make your pledge today to help me bring you twice the lava flow that you're getting right now. So exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a donation of as little as $1 a week using Federal Reserve notes through my site or using cryptocurrencies through Bitbacker. I want to be able to bring you more content soon, so make sure to add your donation today to help make that happen. I don't have any new reviews this week, but if you have a minute and you want to hear your review read right here on the show, please go to lavaflow.com/Apple and leave me a rating and a review. All the cool kids are doing it. Thank you to everyone who's left me a rating and a review so far. You guys rock. To all of you who haven't, can you guys help me out and go leave a review for me? Go to thelavaflow.com/Apple to do that now. Until next time, keep striking the root.
Thank you for listening to The Lava Flow at thelavaflow.com. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe now at thelavaflow.com/subscribe. This has been a Pax Libertas Productions podcast.